I got a question. We were on hourly. I'm a first responder supervisor,
Okay.
and we don't get paid overtime until you work 86 hours in a 2-week pay period. They put us on salary and said we could take time off without having to do sick time. But they're not doing that, so we're working 100 hours every 2 weeks, but we're not getting any compensation for it.
Well, that sounds like a
First
problem.
responders have a different.
Jerry, that may be a problem. We would have to look further into that, but generally, you can pay an hourly employee a salary. That's not against the law. But you can't pay them a salary and work them overtime and not pay them for their overtime if they're a non-exempt employee. And it sounds like that your employer is trying to sort of hedge on that a little bit, which we see from time to time, and that may be a real problem. What do you think about that, Mary?
I agree, Kirby. Jerry, I think this is something that you might want to look further into. Like Kirby said, you can have a salaried employee, but if they're working overtime, you have to compensate them for the overtime if they're not one of the exempt employees that we talked about earlier.
So that won't be too confusing. You can pay an hourly employee in a number of different ways. Salary, hourly, but if you're not an exempt employee, you have to be paid overtime for hours over 40. If you fall into one of those narrow exemptions that we were talking about, those 3 categories, and you don't have to be paid overtime, you have to be paid salary.
I think he's a supervisor as well.
Yeah, so we'd have to see what his supervisory duties are and whether that takes up most of Jerry's time on the job or whether he's working most of his hours as a first responder.